Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the second day of the conference, Connecting Innovation Policy and Practice in Ohio. This initiative is co-sponsored by the U.S. Economic Development Administration and Jobs Ohio, and this platform, website, and the conference were created with aim to share how Ohio is promoting innovation and discuss the best practices of innovation, the state policy, local policies on innovation, and also discuss the challenges and needs for Ohio to be ahead in innovation. So without further ado, let me present the first panel of today's conference, where we have representatives of Ohio innovation projects who will share their successes and challenges. These projects are those that are already in place, and we will conduct the panel in a format where we will let each representative share their slides and talk about the project. And at the end, we will read the questions and discuss them from participants and from the moderator. So I want to present the first project, who will be presented by Stephen Santamaria, CEO of Folio Photonics. Stephen?
Thank you, Iryna. Let me share my slides here. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see these okay? We're good? All right. So I have 10 minutes. Thank you, SIPO, for inviting me. I look forward to. I do everything I can to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in Ohio. It's kind of, other than my first job with the company, it's my second priority and passion. A little bit about Folio. So background of Folio Photonics, the technology was actually invented in Case Western Reserve by Dr. Ken Singer, who's the head of the physics department. Incubated there through a variety of different grants, including NSF and a couple local ones, and spun out in late 2014, 2015. And an exec team was hired in 2018. I joined the company in 2018. I'm considered a boomerang. I'm originally from the Ohio, Pennsylvania area. I moved to the West Coast and worked for Intel Corporation, a couple of different startups up in the Seattle area. And I moved back after being away for 20-something years, back to the Cleveland area. My wife's from here. It's been a great move for us. In 2020, during the pandemic, it's one of the challenges that we'll discuss a little bit here. We opened a Colorado location, basically for us to hire talent and give them a place. So I have two offices, one here in Solon and one in Colorado. And we are in the process right now of starting it says industry socialization and partnerships, but we're starting to do deals right now. You look at the company right now, we are at about 21 people, 9 PhDs, 11 master's degrees, a very, very, very savvy tech company, strong in material science and physics. And we have 6 patents, 2 granted, 4 pending, and we continue to patent and protect our IP with Case Western, and then just different additional patents that we've created. The impetus behind it is data storage. And you look at this world where we're using telephones and everything is digital, and there's a growing gap of data that's being generated and data that's being stored. The storage today is on magnetic tape, spinning hard disk, or flash. These are technologies invented in the 1950s. Folio is targeting that segment, and we're talking a zettabyte is 1 billion terabytes, to put it in perspective. And so the world will have, right now about 175 billion terabytes of data in 2025. So it's a massively large industry, which has not had a lot of innovation and disruption in the past few years. An overview of us. This is very novel to the Cleveland area. We create an optical disc based off of a polymer film that we extrude. This region is very strong in polymers and in certain films. The material scientists, we do products with fluorescent dyes and semiconductor nanoparticles and quantum dots, which we've all patented. And that lets us lead to a very highly scalable manufacturing process that gives us very inexpensive data storage. I have a hard disk from the 1970s here that held 18 megabytes of data, and it cost $10,000. We'll deliver a terabyte of data for under $5. It's $1 million price advantage, a 1,000,000x price advantage that we're working on. Our breakthrough, as I mentioned earlier, it's in nanophotonics, manufacturing, and the multi-layer optics. Inside the region, the first two are very, Ohio has some strength in this area in the material science and then the extrusion, the manufacturers of polymer. The multi-layer optics is not an area of strength for this region, and hence we had to go outside, outside of Ohio and outside of the company or the country. Challenges and solutions. To date we've raised, just to put in perspective, about $14 million. That's what I came in. We did an A round of 14. We're about to go enter and do a B round. We have worked with various agencies. Jobs Ohio has been a great partner for us, and will continue to be for us. They do not only support us with funding, but also in connections and helping us map into various partnerships. So the challenge that I see right now, Ohio doesn't have a startup-friendly technology ecosystem, period. I'm from Seattle in California. And the reality there is that there are solutions available. I'll give you a perfect example, banking. When I try to get banking for this company, because we are pre-revenue, surprisingly, even though we have 14 million in the bank, we can't get credit cards. And that's not the way it is in Seattle. That's not the way it is in California. The banks understand, if the deposits are there, the credit cards are extended. We talk about the venture funding and having access to resources. Unfortunately, Ohio, and it's starting to change, but it's still very much a flyover state. The concentrations of venture funding, especially in technology, are on the coasts. And getting the attention means either I fly or we have to get people to stop here. There's just not a lot of synergy here, synergistic of activity in funding. Number two, which probably should be number one, is talent. We cannot hire enough technical people fast enough. I have job recs open. They've been open for a year and a half. And now I'm paying very expensive recruiters to find and recruit people. This is why I have a Longmont, Colorado office. During COVID, you couldn't move anybody. So we built an office to house the 5 people that I have in the lab out there. Of concern to me, and things that I talked to various universities about, is we are producing grads with technical capabilities, but as soon as they graduate, they get scooped up by Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, and they head to the coast and they never come back. And there has to be I believe, a policy and a program in place that we start to pull people back to Ohio. There's a lot of value here. It's a great quality of life. And as companies like Folio emerge, there's great opportunity for them. This is kind of, a big, strong number 2 on my agenda. And third thing that I find as a challenge as a tech startup is the pace is slow here. What takes an hour for me to do in California or Washington takes a day. What takes a day on the West Coast takes a week here. What takes a week on the West Coast takes a month here. And there's just a different sense of urgency. And I'm talking about everything from legal support and attorneys to banking to partnerships to suppliers, et cetera. It's just a different pace. And those of you who have a technology startup and all you're doing is burning cash, time is money in the most obvious and the strongest way. So the 3 things that I'd like to see Ohio do, and when I promote and I engage with Jobs Ohio and other people, is how do we build up this technology startup friendly ecosystem? I have high hopes. I'm an ex-Intel employee, that the Intel site in Ohio is going to start changing the state, whether we like it or not. It's going to be forced upon us. Intel tends to do that to people. But I really look forward to seeing what happens. And then for Northeast Ohio, we have to make sure that it's just not a magnet that pulls everybody to Columbus. And we have to keep the young, smart talent up here. It's a concern that I have. I don't know if I'm under my 5 minutes, but I try to be very quick. So I'm done.
Okay. I would violate my own rule you talk about the challenges, but do you have a proposed solution?
I go down and spend time at Ohio State, Carnegie Mellon, at Case. We have a lot of Case grads that work here due to the fact that Ken Singer, our founder, is a professor there. And I try to set up programs to recruit. We have 5 interns in right now. I basically grab every intern that I can afford every summer. We've done a good job of converting them to employees. So getting them early, getting them involved, getting them into the culture has been helpful. I was in a conference a while back, and I said this to the lieutenant governor, I think it was. One thing I would like to see, and there are all these boomerang programs, how do we get people to move back? Right? Because we have a great cost of living here compared to the West Coast, a lot of advantages. But I would like to see the state do something like, look, if you move back after being away for 5 years, waive your state income tax for 2 years. Give these people a break, help it make it a lot of economic sense for this to happen and get those programs in place. People talk often about, the cost of living is so different. It's surprising moving from Seattle. Yes, the housing market is incredibly different. What I paid for a very small house in Seattle would be shocking to people. But when you start piling on all the other services and the taxes, it is not I kind of break even. I thought I'd have this great advantage in terms of personal cash flow, but the state of Washington has no state income tax. There's no local income tax. There's no RETA. There's complicated. So it's kind of complicated here when you start getting into it. And I've heard that from other people. You come back here and you're like, you get hit with this tax bill and you're like, whoa, the real estate taxes that I pay here are, 4x, 4 or 5x what I paid in Seattle. And it's just the way the economy is set up a little bit differently. I'd like to see, again, making Ohio a more friendly state for people to move to start pulling people in and really leverage. We have great universities. And, when I was at Ohio State, they're like, let us introduce you to our alumni. They'll invest in your company. I go, I don't want their investment. I want a list of engineers that graduated 5 years ago, went to the West Coast, so I can pitch them to come work at Folio and see every home Ohio State football game. Right? Get them back here. We have to do a better job of keeping our young people in this region, in this area. And this goes across all levels, from very senior people to even entry-level people. I would like to just see, a lot more education and preparation for this market.
And you mentioned that you had really hard time secure venture capital, but Ohio, for the last couple of years, basically secures the highest amount of venture capital it ever had.
I'm not disagreeing. No, I have VCs. My one of my larger VCs is based out of Cincinnati, Refinery Ventures. Tim Schiegel, he really promotes this. He's also a boomerang, came back to the region and does tremendous things to promote it. We also have a Boston VC. But right now, as I enter a B round, which is a significant, it's a kind of a jump from the A to the B in terms of how much money we're looking to raise at different valuations, et cetera. There are not a lot of Ohio or Midwest VCs that fund those type of deals. So most of them are going to be on the West Coast that we're going to start talking to and spend our time.
We are moving there. We might be there sometime.
I need you to move there by October. How about that?
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for your presentation. And we move to Sarah Nash, who is the CEO of Novagard. Sarah?
Good morning, Iryna. Thank you so much, SIPO, for inviting me to present to you all this morning. First, I would like you to know, we can go to the next slide, please, is that I am delighted to say that Novagard is a proud recipient of a $4 million, I call it a venture grant, from Jobs Ohio. So what I'm about to present to you is how we've been able to deploy that grant successfully and continue to do so. The arrangement with them was, of course, we wouldn't just get the venture grant, that I had to invest alongside with them at a multiple of 6 times. So in effect, we're putting $30 million in this company. So a little bit about Novagard. We are a Cleveland-based innovator and manufacturer of silicones. 91% of our product is exported outside of Ohio, which is important to Ohio, as you all know. The exact nature of the grant was to enable us to basically take an 1880s vintage building with an electrical grid that hadn't been touched since the 50s and turn us into an electronics grade manufacturer. We have a heritage of R&D in the silicone area, but we needed to make sure that our ability to manufacture was up to that level. We do have a diverse and tenured workforce. We have 63% diversity in terms of race, extremely proud of that. 20% in gender, less proud of that, but I am the 100% owner. And finally, our tenured workforce is strong, 20% greater than 10 years, but I've churned this company over enormously in the last 3.5 years to upgrade our talent. So I have some sympathy with Steve, who just spoke about the availability of talent. It's a very, very tough market, but I'm proud to say that through partnerships with a number of search firms, we've been able to attract great leadership. Our big issue is on the floor, so hence the grant. Now, why silicones? Some of you hear about this, as you know, it's in chips that Intel makes. It coats most of the electronics materials out there today. But why is it attractive? Well, silicone can be made in many forms. It can make sealants, it can make conformal coatings, gels, adhesives. It is a preferred product because it is flexible and compliant. It is also electrically insulating, so it is used in the manufacturing and electrification of everything, which is why I shifted the company in this direction. It is extremely stable and can be used in extreme environments. It is flexible, but hard and does not crack. So it's very versatile and could be made in many different strengths, elongation, thicknesses, from extremely thin, where you spray it, where it's applied, as you see here in the photo, a gasket or a coating, to a potting material, which would be numbers of inches deep. It can accommodate electronics, so it's electronically conductive, and therefore is used in lots of electronic componentry. For example, we sell to a company that makes that componentry for windmills. It coats conformal coating boards. It is on wearables. It is in the automation of electronics in the automotive industry. And of course, for us, which is where we made our start, it is used very plentifully in the window, roof, and panel manufacturing industries. So we are really, Novagard is a manufacturer. We're proud to manufacture in Ohio, but first and foremost, we're an innovator. And I've chosen for us to become a leading edge innovator around the material of silicone. It is not a big box material. You will not see us sold in the big boxes. We are a B2B company. Now, why would a company choose Novagard over some of our very large competitors? Well, first and foremost, I am proud to be the woman owner of Novagard. As many of you know, selling into large companies, having a diversity in their supply chain is extremely critical. And we are certified by the WBENC. As I said, I not only own the company, but I lead it, and we are headquartered in Cleveland. And why does that matter? Well, Ohio is a truck drive from 80% of the country. So it is an incredibly positive geographic location. So yes, you can fly over it, but if your material is being trucked anywhere, which ours is every day, it is critically important that we be in this hub. So that's a real advantage. Secondly, we are on this journey of converting ourselves from an industrial grade manufacturer to an electronics grade. Our site, as I said, is old. It's on Hamilton Avenue and 53rd Street, which is the old industrial manufacturing area of Cleveland. We are proud to be one of 6 or 7 companies there that have invested heavily in the area. It is not residential, it is all commercial, and it is safe and is easily accessible to the highway system. So it's great in terms of our ability to attract talent. But R&D is the lifeblood of us. currently 19% of our 170 workforce between R&D, innovation and development and quality is devoted to these areas. We are going to be needing to build out a specialty chemicals manufacturing facility to continue to develop proprietary polymers next year. And I'm proud to say that we were honored this year by the Smart Business Evolution of Manufacturers. As I said, we're diverse. We've grown 45% in the last 3.5 years. Very aggressive growth takes a lot of capital. We always need capital. We have a very long and strong relationship with Huntington Bank, who has been very good to us. And of course, now with Jobs Ohio, who, as I said, I refer to as my venture capital partner, we've been able to make significant investments here. We do have committed as part of that to hire 50 people, which we will complete 2 years ahead of schedule. And we continue to educate and evolve our workforce, not only through PhD programs, but also, most importantly, skill up programs, tech credits for our manufacturing base. We are in the second year of this $30 million upgrade. It's gone a little slower than I would have liked. The supply chain has been tough for us, as it has for everybody, but we are expecting to convert in by the end of this summer, where we will then have a fully automated and greater capacity in this mix room where our silicones are all mixed. So where are we? As I said, we're in the building systems, we're in the electronics, and we are in the industrial spaces. Now, what have we used this money for? And since I know we have economic development investors in the building, and on virtually here, I should say, know that we are always in need of money. Our big upgrades in the facility were extremely expensive. And as I said, they range from upgrading the electrical grid, centralizing PLCs, computerizing all our formulas, automating all the raw material handling and dispensing systems. And again, next year, moving to more specialty chemicals. Significant upgrade and expansion of test equipment in our R&D facility, which for a company of our size is extraordinarily impressive. Saves us money and time because we can now do all the analytics, the environmentals, and the electrical testing in-house instead of having to send them out. Most of the tests that we send out now are to get UL approval for our materials for the electronics grade. And finally, we have a state-of-the-art controlled manufacturing facility now. Our building is very large, but our actual space allowed for manufacturing is about a third of that. So that would be about 75,000 square feet. We now look like we're either a manufacturing facility and a warehouse or a warehouse and manufacturing facility, because being a very old building and we're really 5 connected together, we're always in need of more space, more efficient space. But we're using it well, and I'm proud to say that people who come and visit us are extremely impressed with what we've been able to do, as I am, and I am with our people. The fact that we have HVAC and humidity controlled UV manufacturing in a facility this old is quite impressive. So I invite any of you to come and visit us at any time. So what is this enabling us to do? As I said, the foundation of Novagard is really built on innovation. And in 2022, we have introduced 14 new products. And these are across basically 2 main industry sectors. The top 2 are largely electronics grade. The first one being coatings for electronics assemblies and also for LED lighting, which everyone is converting to today. The second, UV Cure silicone, we have a line of silicones here that have us be positioned as the premium provider relative to very large competitors in this space. Why is this important? You're able to cut manufacturing time and curing of these silicones down to 3 to 5 seconds, as opposed to minutes or hours, which of course increases the throughput of electronics grade manufacturing facilities. And finally, we've done the same thing for window and door manufacturers, where today we're positioned a 2-part quick curing silicone. It cures in 6 to 10 minutes instead of hours. So all these very large windows are robotically made. push through the lines, and now they can be lifted off by the robots in 6 to 10 minutes and off to ship. So our innovations have enabled our customers to innovate down the line as well. And we are very proud of this product introduction. We also have all the appropriate quality assurances from IATF, ISO 9001, IPC for certain products, UL for others, VOC, Prop 59, because by and large, silicone is a cleaner product relative to many other coatings out there. So in summary, to enable us to have the largest R&D class for a company of our size, as I said, privately owned by me, very important in terms of partnerships with our large customers. We are absolutely quality certified. It is imperative that we produce the highest quality product. We are a market leader in certain UV and dual cure silicone technology. We are nimble. We are able to respond to our customers' needs in much quicker time than some of the very larger companies, which has created a niche opportunity for us to innovate alongside our customers. So yes, they may come in and request a certain kind of coating, but usually we're able to iterate it and move beyond that, obviously making their product perform at a higher level. And finally, very proud of our diverse workforce. So like Steve, we are always in need of capital. I have borrowed a lot of money. I believe in the future of Novagard. I believe in the future of my team. We are able to attract best in class. It's not easy, but we wait. And our opportunities on the floor, our labor problems have been somewhat abated by the fact that we are automating as many of our processes as we can. We're trying to upgrade the talent of our team so that they can be populated across the plant. We've been too siloed before. So with automation, we're able to do that as well. So I am proud to be a company that is headquartered in Cleveland, old Cleveland, becoming part of new Cleveland and innovating Cleveland for the future. I'm very proud of our, as I say, venture grant from Jobs Ohio, and proud of our financial partnership with Huntington Bank, and it gives us the kind of capital we need alongside mine to grow Novagard to great success. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Our next presenter is Baiju Shah, President and CEO of Greater Cleveland Partnership. Baiju.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here tonight. I want to start with first, it's great to follow Stephen and Sarah, because you're hearing from examples of tangible innovation, creating new products, driving industries and driving job growth locally. I want to start as well with the story about something that's very topic du jour. So if you're like me, you are probably enamored by space and everything that space creates in terms of expanding one's understanding of the universe, expanding one's understanding of the possibilities. And over the last few days, we're starting to see glimpses of deeper space because of the James Webb telescope that went up there, put up there by NASA. What's amazing to me about these images that are not only mesmerizing is that it's like what Sarah was talking, what Stephen was talking about, it's materials innovation that enables it. And in this case, it's materials innovation that ties directly back to Cleveland, back to a company called Materion, which is a specialist in beryllium, and the mirrors that are being used to create these incredible images and capture the light from deep space are beryllium mirrors that were manufactured by Materion. NASA needed that type of material innovation for this incredible object that we've got that allows us to have a broader understanding of where we are in the universe. So it's that type of innovation that inspires, it enables things, not just in outer space, but it enables great innovations here on Earth, and it obviously drives job creation in our region. What we realized several years ago as a region is that while we had efforts underway and we had great legacy through companies like Materion, companies like Novagard, et cetera, we weren't doing enough to really catalyze not only innovation, but the growth and commercialization of innovation in our region. Stephen talked about some of the gaps that existed. our community came together into something called the Cleveland Innovation Project. It's a set of strategies, and you're going to hear more about it from some of our other speakers on the panel today, to really catapult these activities in our region to drive broader economic growth. So I'm going to just give you a quick glimpse into what's been done. And this is a partnership with many civic organizations and many companies and institutions. So the Greater Cleveland Partnership is one of the partners, but it's also the Cleveland Foundation, the Fund for Economic Future, Jumpstart, Team NEO. And as you'll hear throughout the other presentations, many other partners, Magnet, the Cleveland Water Alliance, Destination Cleveland, and others that have really participated and are now propelling the strategies that we've outlined. So this again was started in 2019, really as an effort to strengthen technology-led growth and prosperity for all of Greater Cleveland. Over 150 business, entrepreneurial, and nonprofit leaders were engaged to identify opportunities, develop detailed strategies and plans, and most importantly, set targets for outcomes. My background, like the background of Stephen and Sarah, I'm an entrepreneur by training. That's what I've done for the last 20 years. And for me, it's always about the results, and how do you continue to navigate towards the results. So for us, it was really important as an ethos to say, we're going to set vision for what we want to achieve 10 years from now. We're going to measure how we're doing every year and then continue to adapt so that we stay on trajectory. Through 2 years of developing the strategy and the plans, the civic system broadly, all these different partners, companies, institutions started to align and also started to make significant commitments to execute against the strategy that's been outlined. Now, that included the leaders of a number of our largest organizations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but our research institutions, our healthcare institutions, some of our largest companies, as well as our educational institutions, all participated as a part of the steering committee. And then again, about 150 others that were experts within different disciplines joined into these to the different working groups to really define these strategies. What we outlined at the end of I guess it would probably be 2020, was a focus around 7 key initiatives that you can see outlined here. The first 3 are, with the vision of trying to become the Midwest leader for technology-led growth and inclusion in the next 10 years, was to really focus in on critical sectors where Greater Cleveland had both strength, but strength that aligned with market opportunity, and most importantly, had leadership willing to commit significant resources to make sure that we were able to capture that opportunity in the region. And we chose 3 sectors of important focus. Smart manufacturing, as Ethan will tell you a little bit more about. It's our history, it's our heritage, but it's also our future as we transition to Industry 4.0 and how digital transforms them. Second, and that includes, by the way, materials sciences and materials research along the lines of what Novagard is doing, as Sarah described. Second is around health innovation. And I think our Jobs Ohio speaker will talk a little bit about the work that they're doing with the 5 major health institutions and research institutions around really taking what is an incredible world-renowned healthcare excellence in clinical care and translating that more broadly into industry development and innovation based on those insights. And then the third, as Bryan Stubbs will talk about, is water, an emerging sector where we see the need globally because of the stress of water, whether it's in the Southwest, where every day you can get horrified by another lake that's being depleted. We need the technologies that not only enable water management, but also remediate water flows. And we've got enormous advantages that Bryan will talk to you about in terms of the strategy there. So those 3 focus areas were chosen as sectors that we wanted to scale in the region. We're not trying to do everything. We're really putting our resources against places where we, again, have strength, opportunity, and leadership. But to support that, and this goes to Stephen's comments, you needed to have the enabling elements enhanced significantly as well. So talent, STEM talent, not just about, as Stephen said, developing it, but retaining it once it graduates, whether that's from our higher ed institutions, our technical programs, or workforce programs. Capital. We have a plethora of angel and seed capital, but as Stephen said, we've got almost no Series B or what I'd call large venture capital domiciled, not just in the region, but in the Midwest. And we've got to change that to support the growth of companies like the ones you've heard of. Digital equity so that everyone can participate. As it's not just about learning as we saw at the early days of the pandemic, it's also about earning as now remote work becomes a part of many different work environments. environments. And people can't participate because they don't have affordable access and the skills to learn how to use broadband. They're being left further and further behind. And then finally, concentrating activity around primary innovation zones and innovation districts. In our case, really the Cleveland Health Tech Corridor, the gap, the space between Cleveland State and Case Western, where so many companies have started to form a home as they spin out to both continue to stay engaged with the institutions, but also importantly to draw upon the talent. So those are the 7 strategies that we committed to. And against each of those strategies, it was more important than just the vision, again, was commitment of resources. And since this was launched in end of 2020, we now have over $800 million of funding commitments and growing to initiatives that are part of these 7 strategies. But this past week, you just heard about the next innovation building that's being built in the Health Tech Corridor that's coming out because of the Cleveland Foundation, Jumpstart, the institutions all coming together. And that will be adjacent to the Magnet building that will open later this year that I'm sure Ethan will talk to you about. But this is what's been achieved in terms of commitments, with importantly diversity threaded throughout. We want to make sure that our tech and growth sectors starts to do a better job of reflecting the demographics of our region as it relates to both ethnicity, but also gender, as Sarah mentioned in her remarks. Now, I'll just sort of end on 2 quick slides. So as I said, we've got 2030 goals, which I'll share. But importantly, at the beginning of 2021, our steering committee said, we've got a set of goals for 2021 that we want to achieve. This is an eye chart and a half. Don't pay attention. I'm happy to send this out afterwards. It's also up on our website. But you'll see what we actually achieved in 2021 with everyone's collective commitment, where we have greens on many of our ratings, incomplete, certainly on digital equity, and a yellow on innovation corridor development related to outcomes we were seeking to achieve. With that, we set new objectives for 2022, continuing to sort of put us on trajectory to where we want to be in 2030, increasing our activity across the innovation sectors, significantly continue to enhance the number of individuals, and these are added additional above baseline from where we were in 2019. Capital, making sure that companies are collecting capital as Stephen's going out for his Series B, and I think will far exceed the 500 million just because of the dynamics of venture. But importantly, establishing funds. We need to have those Series A, Series B, large scale venture funds, real venture funds, not funds in our region, in our state, so that these companies have access and they don't have to travel to the West Coast, as Stephen's doing to pursue leads for his Series B round. Digital equity, and then further innovation corridor development, really pulling in that density so that we have an environment in which companies and talent are creating future innovation and using that as the energy point for really the broader region. So those are our 2022 goals. 2030, this is what we had set out from the beginning, which would really change the trajectory of overall economic growth for our region. The innovation sectors are critical to driving broader economic growth. They have an outsized impact on GDP. They have an outsized impact on income growth. We want to be where peer regions in the Midwest are, regions that you guys are all familiar with, whether it's a Columbus or a Pittsburgh or an Indianapolis. And to do that, here are the targets that we're setting for each of these different categories and that we're committed to continue to pursue. Now, to get to succeed, what this requires is not surprising, the same things it would require in a business or an organization, but now you need to do it across the civic system. So it's constant focus, constant collaboration, sustained commitment with real resources, not resources. We talk a lot throughout the CIP, and I do. If you're trying to impact a $140 to $240 billion economy, depending on where you draw the boundary for Greater Cleveland, you can't do it with millions of dollars. You can't even do it with hundreds of millions of dollars. If you're not investing billions of dollars, you can't hope to have the outcomes of really changing the trajectory of a $140 to $240 billion economy. And then management towards outcomes, just like you would in a business, adjustments based on that, with shared accountability for impact. So that's what we're up to in terms of our strategies. These have all been, as I've now transitioned from leading the CIP to now being the CEO of the Greater Cleveland Partnership, they've been embraced and embedded in our GCP overall strategies for the region, as well as in broader regional plans. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Baiju. We will move to the next presenter, Bryan Stubbs, who is the Executive Director and President of the Cleveland Water Alliance. Bryan? Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, it's always nice to follow Baiju, who kind of laid a little bit of our groundwork here in terms of water innovation and water technology. One of the questions you may ask, first of all, is why Cleveland? Well, we're home of a infamous river called the Cuyahoga River that until 1969 used to catch on fire, and today is on its way to being a much different asset for the region in a positive way. But out of that came a lot of companies brought up to speed to help clean water and to stewardship water. And given that, just Greater Cleveland alone, there's over 300 companies that touch what Baiju and I call the water economy. So the Water Alliance, we were established in 2014, economic development, really driven around water tech, digital water, circular economy, working with just some great companies here, starting with Moen and Odie, Downstate, Xylem, and YSI in Yellow Springs, Ohio, as an example. It's significant and, represents, from a kind of a global impression standpoint, roughly about 8% of what we call the water economy is actually based in Ohio. It's just never been driven in such a way where people understood that. It was always like, hey, Odie's a manufacturer. No, they're actually in the water economy. Moen's a little more obvious. So, given that, what we do is it's a traditional economic development cluster. We've got, the industry partners that I mentioned, along with, of course, Cleveland State is a founding partner. Case Western's a founding partner. Kent State's a founding partner. We also have partnerships with Ohio State. Ohio Sea Grant's a crucial partner for us. Bowling Green, Heidelberg, et cetera. You get the picture. And then also we have quite a few partnerships with federal, state, and local agencies. And at the federal level, I know there's some people from the EDA on the call here. We are a recipient of an EDA Build to Scale grant about 18 months ago. That was a special call out for what they call the blue economy. In the freshwater sector, we call it, the water economy. More coastal tends to call it the blue economy, but you can kind of use them interchangeably. What was interesting here is our proposal was the only freshwater cluster in the special call out for blue economy that was funded nationally. Everything else was coastal. It was Alaska, it was Seattle, it was San Diego and Scripps. So it really validated what we've been building here. So, goals here, build this regional innovation engagement, getting our industries involved in solving these global water problems. One, as Baiju mentioned, look out west on what's going on there. Look, water challenges are increasing at an increasing rate, as the economists say. They're not going away, but we have this really nice set of skills here that will allow us to solve problems here that can then be exported globally. So, it's a market that's huge and growing about 12% per year. So we want to support and grow that freshwater innovation ecosystem. Of course, we also want to do this in a way that's thoughtful, that creates jobs. On that front, the Water Alliance and the water economy is one of the fastest growing sectors in Cuyahoga County, where we're seeing over 300 net new jobs created annually every year since 2014. And that's courtesy of an EDA funded report held by the Ohio Aerospace Institute and NASA Glenn, another one of our partners. And some of the key points here with our work is really aligning innovation focus with market need. We're not interested in, somebody who has, a cool thing they developed on their bench in their research lab or, in their garage or basement. It's got to be aligned with the market need. That's really, really cool. And then two, once we have those innovations, really accelerating them to market. So we do that in kind of two key program areas. The first are open innovation challenges. Very simply, to help align innovation focus with market need. The two that we did last year, we do two of these big global challenges annually. They generally are going to be solved in a year. But the first one was for the detection of lead service lines for utilities without breaking ground. This is something that if you go to any utility in the country today, it's keeping them up at night, causing a loss of sleep. They're required by federal policy to start mapping out all of their lead service lines and have a plan to replace them here in the next dozen or less than dozen years. And the mapping has to be done in the next 2.5 years. So there's a real need to detect lead service lines where we don't have maps. These lines are over 100 years old in many cases. So you can imagine with hundreds of thousands of lines, knowing exactly where they are and knowing when to break ground and replace those is going to be key. And then that one, we brought in 6 Ohio utilities, all the way from Cincinnati, Sandusky, Akron, of course, Cleveland, and then Aqua, Ohio, one of our private sector utility partners as well. And then the second big program are our test beds, which we're really excited about. And this is something that really can and is already demonstrating that we can accelerate innovations to the market. So eventually there's going to be 4 of these: a natural environment, a muni-utility test bed, an industrial test bed, and a residential commercial test bed. I'm going to get into the natural environment here in one moment, but the muni-utility test bed, are 2 examples that are live right now. And I mentioned it in the previous paragraph there. We built a pipe farm in Parma, Ohio with Cleveland Water for innovators from throughout the world to come in and trial these lead detection technologies. In fact, we had somebody in from Canada this week out at our site in Parma. So we're real excited by that. The Muni Utility Test Bed, that right now is on one hand a lot of digital products, a lot of smart buoys that we've installed throughout the state as far as those coastal counties touching Lake Erie. But also, another example there is we're working on a pilot disinfection technology using UV pulse technology with Sandusky's utility. The third test bed that we're just dipping our toes into now is industrial, and that's industrial treatment. An example, big one there is Intel. We were certainly tapped as part of that program to land them in terms of water usage and reuse and things like that. And the fourth one is going to be on a residential commercial. That one we are a little further out on, but it's going to be led through Mullen and UH and Eaton. So we're real excited by that. These test beds are really important because they are drivers. They are driving companies worldwide to come into Cleveland. The idea is very, very simple, but very correct. Having a best-in-class water technology test bed, these international and national companies are coming to Cleveland to trial them. Then it's up to us and our partners, such as Team Neo and GCP, to land these companies, to get them to open their offices, start their offices here. We were at a big water tech conference, IFAT, in Munich 4 weeks ago, and we landed 71 subscribers for the test bed. So we're subscribed all the way for and through 2023 right now, which is real validation. And this is made possible with an initial, $600K from EDA Build to Scale. So I thought it was important to mention that. And the another $600K coming from our local funders and the Cleveland Foundation being the first in for that. And then that's been followed up with a $3 million earmark investment through Senator Matt Dolan with the state of Ohio. And we've got some other things at the federal level that we can get into the Q&A. Smart Lake Erie Watershed and Test Bed. This is just an idea of what we call our IoT sandbox. We're just enabling a vast increase in real-time monitoring through telemetry infrastructure. This leads to new digital products. The example there is a French company that we've landed called Baiju. They came in and developed through our smart buoys and with Cleveland Water, a hypoxia early warning system. Major market need for every utility in the world. They had only trialed this in saltwater off of the French coast. They needed to do a trial in freshwater, so they came to us to do that, and we're ongoing working with them and also helping them with a Series A round. And just to give you an idea, that was last year. You see those little dots in terms of our sensor and monitoring stations. This is by the end of this year, how many stations we'll have set up. Again, thanks a lot to the state of Ohio's earmarked dollars. So it gives you an idea. It's not only on the lake. We work a lot downstate. We're looking the western, area. A lot of issues there around nutrients, and nutrient solutions. Of course, nutrients leads to overloading in Lake Erie, harmful algal blooms. That's a global problem, but we're at the front of that. And this is a key one. This is our model. It shows it all starts with our core research institutions. We want to support them. We want to grow what they're doing. We want to give them better, smarter data so they can improve innovation, improve their research, improve their R&D dollars coming at the federal level. That second tier, you see some of those key, both federal, state, and local. We have partnerships with NOAA, USGS, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, H2 Ohio, and of course, all of our utilities, and also the port on some of our smart maritime efforts. And that lower ring is where we get the products to market. And you see some of the companies we work with there, just to give you an idea of the scale and the broadness. So I know I'm about out of time. You asked me to address challenges and solutions. Very simply, we need to grow our water tech bench with our key research partners. We need to see some tenure track water tech fellows being created at CSU and Case Western. So we're working on that. If you follow the data, it's a no-brainer, and our data is going to make us more competitive as a region because nobody has this level of test beds, period. It's global in terms of the attention we're getting. Somebody already hit on talent. Talent is a stress area. Mullen right now can't find the sort of software and technical engineers that they need for their smart home products. We're working right now on a point of use open innovation challenge with Mullen to detect lead for under $50 and a sensor that can be embedded in a faucet. We need more people to help companies like that. Of course, it's always systemic support and funding. If you follow the data, this is a major market, major opportunity. We have a window right now that's open globally for us to cement our position, but it is going to take an investment at the state level on down to the local level. And of course, federally, Senator Brown has an earmark for us. We'll hope that goes through, but he also sees the opportunity here. Entrepreneurial support, I'll be starting and launching. All the paperwork's done for a $5 million seed fund. Water investment is something we do not have expertise here, point blank. So one, we need to educate our investors here, but also we've got to go fairly broad nationally in order to find those investors that understand the space. That being said, one of our partners, Xylem, just invested $30 million in a San Francisco-based water tech fund. We're currently talking with them, and we hope we can land that as far as our seed fund too. And of course, support for international innovation and traction is huge for us. That's where we're seeing a lot of interesting companies wanting to come in here that I think will feed into the innovation ecosystem. As I mentioned, 71 companies in the portfolio from one trip. And those last two things, those two pictures were from this week, and that's our tower climbers installing some of our LoRaWAN gateways. This is not only used for our smart lake and smart watershed work, but our other partners can use our LoRaWAN system as well, including we work with the IoT Collaborative at Case Western around air quality sensors and things like that. And I just love that shot on the right, which, just says how beautiful Lake Erie is, and also, has the football stadium in the background, and the guy that's on that ledge there, it made my knees wobble. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bryan. We are moving to Ethan Karp, who is the president and CEO of Magnet. Ethan?
Wonderful. Glad to be here. Thanks, everybody. So I was asked to talk about the innovation through the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, which you all know about on the phone, I'm sure, because of your Jobs Ohio, you've supported it financially. If you're a partner with us, you're probably involved in it. And of course, EDA, you're leading it. However, as I talk about what we've done here, what I'd really like to highlight is how the innovation is going to happen. Specifically, and maybe this is a little esoteric, but specifically innovation in economic development. So I'll start and I'll kind of tell the story of what we actually proposed for and why it matters to the region. But then I'm going to double back on why collaboration and coming together in a very DEI focused, outcomes focused, and ultimately vision driven way is what all regions need to be doing, and what I'm really, really proud that Northeast Ohio has been doing as of late. So we have manufacturing as our legacy here. And folks like that we've already heard from, are great examples of established companies doing amazing things in innovation. We've also heard from startups doing amazing things right here for physical product innovation. We have always been the hotbed for this. A lot of those things have gone by the wayside over the years, be it the center of machining, Warner Swayze company, if anybody, old time manufacturing. In fact, folks from Magnet, right? We go into all these companies and try to help them on the shop floor, improve their processes, invent their next thing. It's funny, we have staff members who remember going onto the now abandoned Warner Swayze building and helping them think operationally. Youngstown, of course, steel mills, all of the things that we think of that a lot of our communities think are gone. The reality is that 50% of our economy still depends on manufacturing. That's 300,000 jobs, indirectly driving 1 out of every 2 jobs, 10,000 manufacturers. We produce more stuff today than we have ever produced. Even in the height of employment of the 70s, more things are produced here than ever before. But we have some wins against us here. And that is, of course, things like the labor shortage, which is much longer for manufacturers. Manufacturers have been facing this for a long time. We have the headwinds of the fact that we have all these supply chain problems. We have the headwinds that we've got a lot of small companies who are falling behind on the technology adoption they need to be making that other countries are making faster. We outline not just the problems, but how companies, local companies, are facing these challenges in a vision. We call it Make It Better. Both we make things better here in our communities and by our manufacturers having great careers that are far above average pay. On the other hand, we can make it better for all those manufacturers so they continue for the next decade being the engine that drives Northeast Ohio. You can check it out. MakeItBetterOhio.org is our campaign, but there are stories about how the 4 things we identified companies need to do are truly going to be seen and be able to be leveraged. So first of all, those 4 things, talent. We all have talked about already. What is the critical need of talent in our ecosystem? Switch to this view because I could see it was cutting off. How are we going to build that workforce of tomorrow? Secondly, there is a wave of Industry 4.0, a suite of technologies that are affordable and practical for small companies. Sarah already mentioned a number of them that they're putting into their own company. How do we make sure that every one of our companies takes advantage of that and does it faster than any region and other countries? Innovation of new products and services, that is the lifeblood of manufacturing, even service-based build-to-print shops. Innovating in how they do that, what services they offer to their companies, that is the critical piece for the future. And what we've seen when pandemic hits, things are bad, people don't invest in innovation. When things are so good right now, minus all the supply chain issues, that people can't get enough product out the door fast enough, well, now you're too busy to innovate. There's never the right time for innovation, but we've got to do it. And all that leads to leadership. Leadership as a community that we can come together for things like I'll describe here, but leadership at individual companies, that they make their companies the best place to work, that they invest in new technology and new ways of working, that they invest in their next new product. These are the things we need to do, and we can do them if we work together, which was the only Ohio finalist in this Build Back Better Regional Challenge, because we believe we came together to say, what are the things that we could invest in that would accelerate along those 4 elements of the vision? You can see what the vision for this application was, that we will have the world's most advanced and resilient hard tech supply chain. We are America's supply chain. We make pieces and parts for everybody, everywhere. We may not have as many name brand organizations here in terms of folks like, Baiju's story about Materion, right? Very few people know Materion, even though what they're making is absolutely critical throughout the world. We decided that we weren't going to focus on one sector because that's also the complication of Northeast Ohio. We make pieces and parts for every sector. Huge auto supplier, huge aerospace supplier, our wonderful medical institutions. They have adjacent manufacturers making things. Polymers, right? Akron known for polymers for its entire existence. Youngstown now being known for electric vehicles. we can't focus on one thing. We have to focus on the interconnectedness of our supply chains. And we certainly know how to get to people. This conglomeration of organizations, these are the ones that are directly involved in this application. We have pulled these individuals together and some supporters from the congressional side. We have pulled these supporters together, not just to say lip service, but to actually join in and say, how are we going to make our region better? Our framework for doing this is also not simple. We can't change the fortunes of an economy with a simple 2-sentence idea. So at the core, we've heard advanced materials. We've talked a little bit about energy storage. The core, these are the technologies, got a lot of resident knowledge in our academic institutions around this, that feed the automotive, aerospace, med device, and polymers industry. But we can't just focus on the technologies and their customers. We also have to say, how are we going to help companies do that? We're going to do it by focusing on diversity and equity, by leveraging new technologies, by being leaders together and putting our egos aside, and focusing on how we actually commercialize this stuff for practicality. That is our framework for how we're going to change the course of economic development as it relates to manufacturing. The projects that are chosen, each one has a different leader. The overall governance of all this has a very deep connection to equity organizations that focus on how, both at we're building a building level, how does that affect the community? We are going to commercialize. How do we get Black and brown entrepreneurs? How are we thinking about ownership transition of companies to get more diversity in ownership? So our governance structure involves leaders like Baiju across the region, equity leaders across the region, and then each project has a subject matter expert leading it. And so we have some that are platforms, so that we're going to help commercialize more companies like Folio Photonics, help figure out how they get access to capital, but also what they're getting the support for physical product entrepreneurship, which is slightly different. We are looking at that equity component I already mentioned. And then on these technologies, we're looking at how do you do more home health device creation, so R&D to do more home health monitoring. How do we figure out how to make new polymers, especially sustainable ones? How do we test more battery vehicles so that we can have more battery companies coming here? How do we accelerate materials use for aerospace, especially leveraging NASA? And how do we think about new ways of energy storage for resilience in our energy supply chains, microgrids specifically? These technologies, which are all innovations, come together, and our goal, our belief is we can create 13,000 jobs, another 7,000 retained, billions in GRP from these investments alone. Now, what I said was I'm going to loop back and say, well, why does this work? And why is this different than anything else? First of all, it represented the entire community coming together. And we agreed on a set of guiding principles that I tell you every single person involved in this collaborative believes in. That the region comes first. We're going to not focus on our parochial issues, even though we have people that live and die for polymers. They're not just going to focus on polymers. They're going to talk about how we're all interconnected. Working collaboratively, relationships, let's be honest, none of this innovation happens if we're all just transactional. We all just come together and say, you do your stuff, I'll do my stuff, we'll walk away. We actually have to build those relationships. We also, in a economic development civic landscape, can't be dictators. You do this, you don't do that, you don't do that. We have to compromise, we have to have consensus, and borrowing right from the core of manufacturing that we represent, continuous improvement, that open, honest feedback. How can we improve? That's how you get through mistakes. That's how you get through missteps, as you say, I'm going to do better next time, and you actually do it. And lastly, the equity integration is fundamentally different than how we thought about this in the past. We have leads representing the Northeast Ohio Hispanic Center, the Urban League of Cleveland, and the Urban League of Akron, leading amongst many others. And while they are not necessarily, any one of them, so deeply involved in innovation of technologies or in manufacturing, they have a lens for how this is going to affect the community, particularly those who need to be raised up with these jobs most acutely. So that really is what I wanted to share about the Build Back Better proposal, but also just the process, and say the fact that we got together and did this means we can do it again and again, means we have a vision for how the future of manufacturing can go. And that in itself is going to drive a tremendous amount of innovation, which we hope will come down to the Novagards of the world and the Folio Photonics of the world.
Thank you very much, Ethan. The last but not least presented in our first panel today is Taylor Manahan, Assistant Director of Advanced Mobility in Transportation Resource Center.
Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I'm going to be talking about some of the innovation that we have going on in Ohio, actually revolving around our automotive sector. So a little bit about the Transportation Research Center. We were actually envisioned in the late 1960s, early 1970s by the governor of the time, James A. Rhodes. And he had this really great idea of bringing automotive research and development here to Central Ohio. And so that's where TRC was born. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit organization that's affiliated with The Ohio State University. And really our goal is to provide complex and holistic research and engineering test services to industry, academia, government. And as I mentioned, if we think about starting in the 1960s and 1970s, the automotive sector has changed drastically since that time. Originally we're thinking about things like seatbelts and brakes and how to just keep the body of the vehicle safe. And in the last few years, we've really transitioned to this idea of how to make our vehicles smarter, whether that be through automated or connected or these advanced technologies. And so that's where recently our first challenge has come in as an organization, is to take a step back and look at how we need to innovate and be prepared for those new technologies and how we test those. And so our first innovation project, or more recent innovation project that we had, is our Smart Center. And our Smart Mobility Advanced Research and Test Center is a $45 million project that was funded through the Ohio Department of Transportation, Jobs Ohio, and the Ohio State University. And this was a 540-acre facility just designed to support a wide variety of automated and connected vehicle testing in a safe, controlled, and repeatable environment. So back in 2015, we sat down with various stakeholders, whether that be government or industry, and really tried to analyze, what kind of test environments are these innovators going to need in order to make and create these technologies safely before they put them on the road. And so that's where this was born. So you can see we actually have a couple pictures here of that finalized facility that's been in operation since 2019 and really helped us support our clients in that industry. And so we have a 6-lane high-speed intersection that can cover a various amount of urban type intersection scenarios, and those can also be used to support heavy trucks as well, as we know that's an important aspect when we think about the automotive environment. We also have a much more condensed urban area that focuses on more like a New York City style urban environment, where we have a lot smaller lanes and traffic areas. And so what we can do is actually recreate these urban environments that all of us kind of take for granted, and recreate those in an environment that's safe to test a vehicle prior to those going on the road. So this is just one example, and this really helped kick off the rest of the innovation projects that I'm actually going to talk about. But this was really one of the leaders in that area. One of our other projects that we have going on is called Roadmap, so Rural Open Access Development Mobility Action Plan. This is a project that TRC is partnering with Rural Action, Drive Ohio, U.S. Department of Energy. And there's a couple focus points of this project. One is the electric vehicle side, so really understanding how we can implement electric vehicles or electric technology into those rural areas. And I should back up here a little bit. Designating rural versus urban, when we think about urban, there's typically more access to things like chargers for vehicles. It's a much smaller, condensed environment. Where rural, we're not really seeing as much integration for some of these technologies. And so we felt that, Athens, Ohio would be a great look at for this. So with that electric vehicle portion, there is a shuttle pilot, as well as putting some EV technology in there. And then the second portion of this is actually looking more into understanding those rural roads. And when I say understanding, I mean understanding from the perspective of a vehicle with these advanced technologies. And so we've actually taken a more advanced vehicle, we've put them in this area, and we've collected a lot of data. Understanding, are there lane lines that the vehicles have issues with? Is the vehicle able to detect the signs if it has that capability? How do the hills affect it? Just some of those more road type features that you're not going to see in an urban environment, we're trying to take a look at here with this project. The other project that we have going on, again, you're going to hear some similar partners with this. We've got Drive Ohio again, as well as also partnering with Indiana on this project. And we're actually taking a look, kind of the flip side of the rule, and looking at the I-70 corridor between Ohio and Indiana, and really taking a look at automating that corridor and understanding what that means. So this one has a couple features and parts of it as well. So one portion is going to be a heavy truck portion of getting some host fleets actually on that corridor and running with some advanced technology. And then the other portion is the portion that we're working on specifically, which is essentially creating a guidebook for understanding that. And so the hope is that as we collect the data on this corridor, things like LiDAR data, radar data, camera data, we can actually provide that guidebook to the users of this corridor and kind of twofold. One, help inform the infrastructure owners and operators of, hey, this area causes some issues for these vehicles. Can we look at different ways of adjusting that? Or on the flip side, for the users of that corridor, hey, these are some hotspots that we noticed, at least with our technology, had some trouble. Please be cognizant and prepared in those areas and take a look at those. And then our final project that we have that I'm going to talk about today is our data project. So this one is much larger than our other two, actually. Again, similar partners. We have Drive Ohio, Ohio State University, Ohio University, and all of these groups are coming together again for kind of a two-part program that we have here. One part of it is, again, having a heavy truck focus on it. So we will be implementing some advanced technology called truck platooning on two heavy trucks that'll actually be going on the road and collecting data and actually in operation. So we can understand, when those vehicles were able to operate versus when they weren't, and how they can actually be deployed on the road long term. The other portion of this project that we have is a passenger vehicle portion. And so these passenger vehicles have been implemented again with that suite of sensors. So LiDARs, radars, cameras, to really see the environment and be able to react what that environment is. We're focusing in Athens, Ohio again. So this one also has a rural aspect to it. And so we'll be deploying kind of a limited source, what we call level 3 technology. So really starting to dip our toe into that automated driving system and understand how this vehicle reacts. When is it able to be engaged versus disengaged? And one of the themes you'll notice with these three projects is it's really about that communication and information sharing. So that is one of the big challenges that is currently facing the automotive environment, is how do we continue to share all of this information between, the industry folks that are leading the technology, the infrastructure folks that are trying to adapt and be prepared for that technology, as well as all of the testing folks that go into it as well to make sure that everything is safe for the operation. And so really these projects are focused on how can we use this data collection to really pull this information together. So for instance, one of the solutions that's coming out of this data project is that the data that we collect will be available to the public at the end. And so that way researchers can actually go in and start to investigate and dive into their own research topics that may come from it. So those are some of the projects that we have going on here at TRC that are focused in innovation and in the automotive innovation.
Thank you. Thank you, Taylor. Thank you to all for presenting such a variety of projects. We have here representation of all type of innovation we talked yesterday. We have some mission-oriented, invention-oriented, and system-oriented innovation. But about every presenter, mentioned some systematic challenges that both on the level of region and on the level of company exist. So consistently with the policy review we did yesterday, the workforce shortages are by far the most important shortage and challenge innovative projects and innovative regions have. So my question would be to all type of the project and presenters here, starting with systemic change, which Baiju presented in a regional level and Ethan addressed on the sectoral level. And Bryan's project is more like mission-oriented within the certain area of invention, but it's basically also more systematic change. How do you see resolving this issue? Because apparently for Stephen and Sarah, it's enormously costly to go to every PhD program, every university program, every, skill up or other type of program to gather the workforce. So any thoughts you have how the region can come together to serve the companies, to serve innovation with better supply of the workforce?
I'll happily
Who wants to talk first?
So my comments initially are going to focus on one half of the equation, which is the entry level, mid-skills level, and some of that, when we need all this technology for our companies, our engineers need to be upskilled, perhaps not at the level of PhD scientists that we're talking about as well. So I'm gonna start with that one. Systemic is the name of the game. It requires holistic solutions. Historically, that's not what we've done. Most of our communities, we say, well, if we fix the training, it'll happen. If we fix the transportation, maybe it'll happen. If we, if this organization does better, it'll happen. And the fact is, all of those things get you almost all the way to a job, but not fully. And when we talk about who we need to be targeting, we need to be targeting populations that have lower labor force participation. So you're often looking at urban or very rural communities, people that have other barriers, that they have childcare needs, or they don't have a car, or they have things that have to be solved simultaneously before they can be gainfully employed and stay in and be retained. So our approach has been get manufacturers together, have them own the accountability, because ultimately they're the ones that need these jobs the most, and then figure out how we align each piece along the way so that nobody can fall through a crack. And we've done this successfully last 18 months in collaboration actually with GCP in one county, our most populous manufacturing county, Cuyahoga County. We put an extra 500 people, which is a tremendous number toward the gap of say 3,000 or 4,000 that probably exists today. And that's an awesome number. Here's the problem. You tap out of the number of people you can reach very quickly. And now you have every system, so we can get them there. We can give them the wraparound support, so we can even retain them with good coaching that we provide, but we can't find the individuals. So we are now trying a whole bunch of pilots, actually some in collaboration with Jobs Ohio's Ohio to Work program, to say, how do we get into the communities? How do we leverage organizations, be they churches, community development corporations, or direct door-to-door on behalf of a mayor, to tell people about great careers in manufacturing, which, oh, by the way, could be great careers in IT and healthcare, who are experiencing the same major shortage, and all pay living wage, really good career wages. So that is a very complex answer for the problem that we've treated as if it needs a silver bullet. The other side of the equation is an even more interesting one around the PhD side. It's not PhD and advanced folks. We haven't cracked this nut. I will toss out there in the spirit of large-scale brainstorming that the idea that we can create more of an academies model where PhD scientists actually work on behalf of the companies who then are recruiting them, who are then funding that research, albeit very practical research, and this is, of course, taking from models from Germany and elsewhere, is an imminently desirable thing, but would require fundamental rethinking how our academic institutions interact with our companies, particularly small ones who will not have the bandwidth to do this as much as the larger ones. So I would throw that out as an idea for some of the higher level. The intermediate level, I think we can supplement with a lot of, here's a quick training for upskilling in industry 4.0, et cetera. I also think that's pretty critical to bridge the gap between what was known 20 years ago, what's known today, and what needs to happen in technology.
Well, I'll just add maybe some comments to Ethan, and I'll focus maybe on, as Ethan's focused really on the workforce sector, training, the partnership, the alignment there. I'll talk a little bit more about sort of higher ed. So a couple things that I think we need to do. One, at a systems level, we are launching an initiative with Cleveland State, Case Western on internships and co-ops so that we really enable the types of placements for companies from the programs that are here locally. And we expect to broaden that to include some of our other larger institutions in the Northeast Ohio area. The second, though, I want to go to Stephen's comment about policy support. What can we do from a policy level? So on the one hand, it is around supporting internships, making sure that these are all paid internships, which I think they are at many of these companies, and the supports, as Ethan mentioned, because not every student has the means by which to get out to some of these locations where companies participate. But the second, it's also about talent attraction. And I do think that there is a moment, there's a lot of convergence right now in the political landscape around a bill that got floated in this legislature, won't get dealt with now, but will probably get dealt with beginning of next year, called the GROW Act. And it's around incentives to attract and retain STEM talent, in particular, not only STEM talent that's here today within Ohio, but STEM talent that can be attracted into our state via various incentives. And whether it's a tax forgiveness plan, you can flip it around and call it a loan payment plan, which is a great interest, especially to younger employees. That's something we need to do. But to complement that, and I think this is the part that we don't do well as a region, and we are only starting to do as a state, we have to change the narrative about our region and our state. We have to talk about the really cool innovations that are coming out of our region, our state, so we change the image, because lower cost of living, proximity to great amenities is not a distinctive feature on a national scale. There are many other regions that can say that. Working in super cool companies like Folio or Novagard or Materion, as we've talked about, or some of the water tech and smart tech, manufacturing companies that Ethan and Bryan, that's got to be the narrative of our state. We've got to continue to promote that. And we can't have this kind of like tussle with our heritage. We really have to embrace the future and embrace the companies that are creating our future and describe that, because that's where talent wants to be, and talent has a choice. And we need to start thinking like marketers rather than thinking about how do we please all of our constituents.
Iryna, I just want to double down on that last point. Our companies need talent today, and everything Ethan was talking about and the Cleveland Innovation Project is working on long-term is great, and we fully support it and will support it. But right now it's about this narrative. And I'll use the water reference as, do you know what California, Arizona, Texas are going through from a water standpoint? I mean, we're doing a lot of work with companies that use a lot of water in manufacturing process that they're coming here, whether people are ready for it or not. Water's just become too unstable as a key ingredient in the manufacturing process. In that same breath, though, when I talk to folks in California, and I talk to a lot of them in that family there, I'm like, Cleveland is cool. And there's all these great new innovations, new technologies, but in the world of a 25-year-old on the up and up, they're thinking through the lens of climate change and cost of living, and can I do something that has real impact in the community? Look, I'm not from Cleveland, and what brought me here was an innovative, cool project in Oberlin, Ohio, and then what kept me here though is I could have impactful, long change. The communities are great and the cost of living is incredible. So for somebody like the Water Alliance, when we're talking nationally and internationally, people are like, their heads are coming up saying like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. So that narrative is a key point. We've got to tell that story per Baiju.
May I just add something? I think it's critically important not just to think in terms of attracting talent, but we are manufacturing base of serving many different industries, and our, primary high school education system is not responsive to that. I think we need much more STEM in the public schools that will help this next generation of student, many from underprivileged. I mean, Cuyahoga County is not just wealthy, as we know, it's got tremendous areas of disadvantaged population. And we've got to do a better job of incenting and training these young people to do more than just join gangs, which is what's happening. We need them desperately in the workforce. And unfortunately, they can make more money doing other things that have nothing to do with holding a real job. So we've got to incent them to the excitement of their future, inspire them. And I'm sure we're trying, but you can't go school to school. So I'm all in on any kind of program you all want to try and set up of a trade school nature in high school, starting in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. It can't start in the 10th grade. It's too late. These kids are being bundled in at ages 12 to 14. So, because I desperately need them. We need those 18-year-olds who aspire to make a very, very good living at a young age. I mean, they're making in the well over $60,000. That's a lot in Cleveland.
You're in luck. Actually, that is beginning to exist. So I have a conversation, in fact, this Friday. The entire driven through the same model. I focused on the adults transitioning, but the entire Cuyahoga County has formed a coalition with all of the relevant partners and the core urban school district to actually say we need education on careers starting in 6th grade and going through 12. And from the manufacturing standpoint, we as the sort of conveners of the manufacturers have come up with not only programming at every level, that we are happy to do it at a combined level where hopefully they'll help us get it into all the schools, because the programming needs to be at every school. I don't need to personally go to every school to figure that out. So coordinated functionally in the middle or by a central body, and then allowing the actual manufacturers to say, here's what they can do, including, we mentioned this innovation district in Midtown, so right near you, where we're building a whole new headquarters, the center of which was a hands-on manufacturing experience that hopefully every kid in Cuyahoga County will have gone through to say, oh, this is what manufacturing is. Oh, these are the manufacturers that are here. Little plant tour, like all the types of hands-on things that are required to generate that awareness so that we do have a pipeline of 18-year-olds, which is, I hope in the future, truly the way this happens. And you couple that with internships, right? We also have some really pioneering programs for German-style apprenticeship, which is huge innovation happening right here in Northeast Ohio. So we can figure out how to get high schoolers who are not just enrolled in career tech education, because while career tech education is wonderful, there's not enough bricks and mortar to fill our jobs. So we got to be able to take kids from every school, which means getting them into a manufacturer for that internship, but you have to wrap them around with supports around that, because you can't take somebody who doesn't know how to, screw a screw in and put them on a manufacturing floor. So we've got to put all those pieces together, but we are absolutely focused on that, because you're right. That's where the future needs to come from.
Stephen?
I like the comment that Baiju made about we have to put a marketer's hat on. When I first moved to Cleveland, I got involved in a little project with Destination Cleveland, where they're creating this vacation place for people, tourists to come. And, and I always marvel when I see their ads and their papers and things like that come out. They do a great job. What needs to be done marketing wise is to these workers, and I have both. I have the higher ed PhD candidates that I'm looking for, but I'm also looking for factory workers, is that we have to create a very positive impression here that a manufacturing job is cool. You can buy a house, you can buy a car, you can afford a family, and promote that. We have to create the unicorns and that sense that this is a path, because to Sarah's point, that people just look right past it. You don't have to go to college to get a great job. I mean, we're down in Solon off Cochran Road, and every company out here has a flag up at $30 an hour. I'm hiring today, and they're competing each other, all over the place. And, and I just wonder, why aren't people gravitating here? Why aren't they taking advantage? $60,000, $70,000 a year is a great income, and it gives you a great future. So, this is what we have to do, is just kind of make heroes of these people that have gone through this and make them be the role models. And then, word of mouth is better than all these programs to try to force people into.
Thank you. And we had a question to the whole panel from the audience asking about the case of semiconductor shortages and a bipartisan bill currently held up in Senate on to subsidize semiconductor manufacturing. But the question is broader than that because it can also be applied to the workforce. Any ideas how collaborations can better inform and push political action from the regional level to state and to federal? And that can include any issue, including the workforce.
I'm happy to jump in. So one of the things that we're doing right now across this state, so with my peer organizations in Columbus and Cincinnati with the Ohio Business Roundtable, is we're shaping a growth agenda for Ohio. And that's really to accelerate this momentum. And it's really focused principally on state levers and state action that can be done because the state has got enormous resource. We've got a wonderful governor and lieutenant governor that are committed to innovation and growth. And we want to really take a look at sort of the surplus resource that is at the state level and say, how can that best be used strategically to continue to advance these types of endeavors and continue to advance growth in our state? Now, a part of that is talent. That's probably the largest segment of what we need to solve. And we've had some ideas here, but a bit of it is infrastructure as well. Housing, we've talked about the lower cost of housing, but housing is also starting to become increasingly unaffordable in certain parts of our state and also certain parts of our region. If you look at sort of Summit County in an article that popped earlier today, just the lack of affordable housing options. So infrastructure is going to be important as well as a part of that investment strategy and the agenda that we'll start to develop.
Well, I want to thank you, all of you, for wonderful presentation and your thoughts around how to tackle the challenges within our region and our state. At this point, we're going to close this panel.